So appreciate you all joining us. As I said, we have Darcy Hamlin with our Unemployment Insurance Division with us. Darcy will be talking through all the different resources that are available through the Department of Labor. So without further ado, to get to who you actually want to hear from, Darcy, why don't you take things away and kind of go over today's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. So I think I'm looking at the who's here, and I think I see some familiar names. So initially, this was developed to meet initially with people who are used to doing our seasonal mass claim process. So I do expect that we will have some new people who haven't done this before, but it's kind of, I want to start with the basics, because once somebody files an unemployment claim, the first thing that's going to happen on your end as an employer is that we're going to start mailing you forms. And our forms, lots of people tell me that our forms are confusing, they seem repetitive. We're not quite sure what we have to return and what we don't have to return. So Kyle's going to go through some of our forms, display those for you so we can go and talk about what the form is, whether you need to return it, and what information it's trying to give to you. So Kyle, why don't we start with the B10S?
Okay. B10S. Yep. Let me just zoom out here.
Okay. So the B10S is a form that I think most people who deal with unemployment in your employer is used to seeing. This form is telling the employer that they are potentially chargeable for the unemployment claim. The top section of the form on the front has information regarding who the claimant is, as well as the claimant's weekly benefit amount and the total wages that were paid by both you and any other employers that are chargeable on the claim. Vermont is what is referred to as a proportional charging state. And all that means is that when we are determining chargeability and how we're charging back employer experience ratings, we are looking at what percentage of all of the wages used in a defined period of time that we refer to as a base period, and what percentage of those wages you paid, and that determines your charge percentage. For example, if the total base period wages are $10,000 and you paid 10% of those wages, your account would receive 10% of the charges against your experience rating. The bottom half of the form, and this is the long form that we send you, it's 8.5 by 14. And the bottom half of the form is a request for separation and payment information. And this is information that the department needs to gather in order to determine whether the claimant is eligible to receive benefits immediately or whether there is information that requires us to investigate their eligibility. It's really important to us that all of the questions answered on the form are answered as the questions are written. We've actually written these questions in order to obtain the information that we need so that we can adjudicate any eligibility issues with the least amount of need to contact you for more information. One of the most common areas where we see errors being made is the end date of employment that we're looking for is actually the last physical day the claimant worked. If the termination date was a later date or the date you remove them from payroll, that's information that's good for you to have, but it's not information that we necessarily need to have. And then the rest of it, if you were also looking, particularly if there was deductible income that was paid to an individual at or due to the separation from employment, we need to be able to allocate that money based on that claimant's normal work week. So we're going to ask you about that work week, and we know that in some industries it's a little hard because the employer schedules varying based upon their need instead of a set work schedule. So we would be looking for you to be able to give us what was the average over the last year? How many hours a day did the individual work? How many days per week did the individual work? That way we can, again, have information so that we can allocate that money properly against the claim and determine the claimant's start date for payments. If the separation is not due to lack of work, then on the back side of this form, we're going to ask you for more information about why they did separate. I encourage everyone at this point to give us as much detail as possible. Feel free to attach additional pages. And if the individual was discharged, any documentation that you want to attach to that, copies of warnings, payroll records, attendance records, anything that you feel helps you to make your case that this individual was discharged for work-related misconduct, feel free to attach it up front. You don't have to wait for a claims adjudicator to contact you to ask for it. Section E on this form is really important for individuals who have more than one employer. And you may receive a form for someone who is still working for you part-time. And in this situation, it would be because their other employment, potentially they lost another job or they were reduced in hours from another job. And information that you provide to us in as much detail as possible in Section E helps us determine whether your account should be charged or not for any portion of this claim. And then finally is Section F, where we're going to ask you to sign the form and print your name and give us information on how we can contact you if we need additional information. And I think that's it on that form. The very top of that form on the back side is we're going to show back to you the wages that you reported to us on your quarterly reports. So it's a way for you to verify the information and correct it if it's been entered incorrectly. Kyle, can we go back to the front page of this form?
Sure thing.
I think you just have to scroll back up.
Might take it a second to come through. I'm just waiting for it to load on your end, probably.
So what I want to point out on this form when we get back to the front side is this form is going to come to you with a due date. And it's very important because this information is necessary to determine whether this claimant should be paid or not. So getting the form in timely so that we can prevent any improper payments to the claimant. If, for instance, they don't tell us about something when we're taking the claim, they could misinterpret when they were told that there was no work left for them, that it could be a lack of work versus it's actually a discharge and you still have work. You just don't want this individual to do it for you anymore. So the due date is very important, and if this form has to be returned, there is a $100 penalty if it is not returned by the due date on the form. The penalty can also be assessed if the information provided is inaccurate or is incomplete. I'm still not seeing the front. So why don't we change forms and go to the B8F? The front on that is the information I want to share is on that one as well.
Yeah, Darcy, just let me know if for whatever reason it's not changing. Which was the next form you wanted to see again?
B8F.
B8F.
And the B8F is also going to be very familiar. It looks an awful lot like this form, which is the B10S. All of our form numbers are down in the bottom right-hand corner. If you have some forms and want to follow along from your own records. I'm not seeing anything change.
Okay. Do you, because I have switched, I don't know if anybody else is having that issue of not seeing the form switch, but
Yeah.
do you want to maybe try jumping out and then jump back into the meeting, Darcy, just so that this person doesn't see it either?
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just
There.
bearing with us. Appreciate it.
Okay. So you're going to see that big bold box that says due date, and that's the date that we must have the form back. By statute, you are provided with 10 calendar days from the mail date of the form. Section on this form is sent to you if you are not currently charged for this claim, or if the individual has already had one separation from your employee during the course of this benefit year, and they're coming back in to reopen the same claim that they were filing on before. And underneath request for separation and payment information, you're going to see some bullets that look like black squares. This form only has to be returned to us if the claimant separates for a reason that is not lack of work, is being paid any type of remuneration that is listed in Section B, is on a family leave or was hired to cover for someone who was on family leave and they've now, the original employee is now returned to work. Sometimes people misread this section just because we're sending you the form and we're not telling you that somebody has left your employment. It really is more of an if-or statement. If the claimant voluntarily quit, if the claimant was discharged, received payments at separation or due to the separation. Otherwise, this form is essentially the same as the B10S and asks for the same information. Okay. Then can we move on to the B10NS?
Yep, I will click over that right now and get it so that we can see the whole thing.
Great, thank you.
And it may just take a second for it to switch over.
There it is.
Perfect.
Okay, so the B10NS is essentially the same form as the B10S, except that this goes out to all of the employers who are being charged for this claim, but who are not identified as the last employer in time. So you're going to see this form when someone who used to work for you potentially up to a year and a half ago has filed an unemployment claim, but wages that you paid to this individual are still being used to calculate his claim. And we were going to ask you for the same type of information in regard to his separation, because this form is used to determine whether your account remains chargeable or whether your account should be relieved of charges. On this form, we don't ask for payment information because we're not looking at the claimant's eligibility for benefits at this time. We are solely looking for information about the separation in order to determine whether your account should be charged or not. And then the next form we're going to look at is our B84W.
Alrighty, switching over.
Okay, while we're waiting for that, we'll just talk about it a little bit. The B84W is notice of benefit charges to your experience rating record. And if you have people who have been charged against your account during a month, you will receive a notice of benefit charges to your experience rating record. This is telling you what charges are being assigned to your account, either for current employees who are on layoff and filing or past employees. And this is another opportunity for you to protest whether your account should be charged. So you may receive this for a month or two with charges on it that you've already protested. And at some point, we're going to get to that B10S form. And right now, it's taking approximately 8 or more weeks with the volume of these separation forms that we're processing to get through. So it may be 2 months, it might even be 3 months that you see an individual still on your notice of charges that you have already sent in a charge protest on. I can assure you that those charge protests are being looked at, and that any charges that are assigned to your account that should not have been will later come back to you as a credit. You'll see a credit indicated on this form next to the dollar amount by the initials CR. You'll notice this form says this is not a bill. Because this is an insurance program, we operate just like your auto insurance program. This information is used to determine whether your rate will remain the same, go down, or go up when the rate period ends. And your new rate is sent out to you in the end of June. Okay. At any point in time, whether you are welcomed, if you have information that calls an individual's eligibility into question, we encourage you to contact us and tell us what you know. You are the eyes and ears of the program in your community and are the first strong line of defense against people receiving benefits that they shouldn't be receiving. Okay, and then we're going to go to the B70.
Okie doke.
Okay, and the B70 form is a wage request. This form always must be returned by the due date on the form. It also carries a $100 penalty if it is not received. And this information is when we need recent wage information to determine whether a claimant qualifies for a benefit amount. In many cases, when we're looking at an initial claim and determining monetary eligibility, we are looking back up to 18 months. But the law gives us 3 opportunities to determine whether someone qualifies. We start with old wages and we work our way forward. So the B70 form is asking you to provide us with wage information that is not yet due on your quarterly report. So it's important that these forms get turned around and get right back to us so that we can then move forward on determining an individual's eligibility. Okay. So I think that's the only forms that we have time to go through. And
all right, so yeah, I'll just jump back to our other topics.
Right.
Kind of talked through already what the forms are and what do I need to return. Next thing on our agenda is the deductible income and adjudication process, I believe. So I don't know if you have any, if you want to talk through any of that, or if you would rather just jump right into the spreadsheet versus individual forms. That would be the next thing.
Well, I'm going to touch really quickly on what we consider to be deductible income. Deductible income is income that is deemed disqualifying by statute, and it requires us to issue an eligibility determination to identify for both the employer and the claimant which weeks of the claim are being impacted by this money and when benefits are going to start for the individual. Recent statute has added a new category of deductible income. Deductible income currently is vacation pay that is paid at or due to the separation, or even if it's paid but not time taken off in the 4 weeks prior to separation. Vacation pay also includes personal time off. Some employers also call it PTO or CTO. All of that falls under our vacation personal time statute. We also look at wages in lieu of notice, one of the most misconstrued topics. Wages in lieu of notice is literally if you are letting an individual go, you're not able to give them any notice, so you're going to pay them for through the end of the week or through the end of the day or through the end of the pay period. All of that money is also deductible income. Severance pay, if paid generally at the end of a permanent separation, is deductible income. And if a severance agreement is required to be signed in order to receive that money, we need a copy of that agreement. Statute requires us to review the agreement to determine if the agreement spells out how that money is allocated. And then our newest category is sick pay. If you are paying out a balance of sick pay to an individual, that money is now deductible as well and requires a claims adjudicator to review that and issue a decision. We also consider as personal pay would be payment for a holiday that is not a recognized legal holiday under Vermont statute. The most common day of this is the day after Thanksgiving. Many employers give that day off with pay. In your policies, you call it a holiday. For unemployment, we call it personal pay. Okay. So then let's move on to the mass layoff spreadsheet. Many of you received an email telling you that this year, as part of our seasonal layoff process, we will no longer be opening claims for your workers. And so we're going to, we have information that's on our website available for you to give your employees when they're being laid off, that tells them how they can go online and open their own claim or reopen an existing claim. You want to go to the website, Kyle?
Yeah, let me just pull that up.
Great.
Yep. And so that is, just for those who may not have known, it is on our website at labor.vermont.gov. And if you click on unemployment insurance, there's seasonal layoffs and claims information. So the link is labor.vermont.gov/unemployment-insurance/seasonal. And then Darcy, I guess if you want to talk through, I can scroll down to the employment section, but we do have the information up here for both claimants and employers on this page.
So why don't we just scroll down to the bottom just so we can see it?
Sure, absolutely.
And then down here for employers, you will see that this is where you're going to find our mass layoff spreadsheet. It's not populated there at this moment, but it will be there later today. But we also have the one sheet handout that you can print off and give to employees that explains to them how they get their unemployment claim opened. One of the things that's really important to remember about opening the unemployment claim is that it has to be opened during the first week they wish to be paid for. So if they want to file as soon as you lay them off, they can file during the first week that their hours are reduced or they are laid off totally in order to establish their claim and to be paid so that they don't miss a week. Unemployment claims begin on the date they're filed. They do not get backdated. Okay, and then go ahead, Kyle.
Darcy, did you want me to open the spreadsheet, or I certainly can do that.
Why don't you open the spreadsheet?
Let me see if I can try to pull that up as you're talking through stuff here.
All right. So as I said at the beginning of this, we're going to send you a lot of forms. And when you have a company-wide shutdown, that's an awful lot of paperwork to process. But if you are laying off 10 or more people, we're going to encourage you to complete our mass layoff spreadsheet. This can be provided to us in lieu of you returning all of those forms. It's really only going to be needed if you have individuals who are laid off due to a lack of work and who are being paid deductible income at or due to the separation. If they're being laid off, they have no income that they have that's going to impact their claim, we don't need to have the spreadsheet either. So it's a great way to report to us all of that vacation pay information in one location. That allows our claims adjudications unit to gather information necessary to issue those decisions, but to also do what we refer to as a multi-claimant adjudication, which allows us to get decisions out to your employees faster so that they can begin receiving benefits sooner. This year, we've scaled down our mass layoff spreadsheet. Since we're not opening claims, we don't need you to provide as much information as you had in the past if you've used this format. We have added columns for sick pay and removed columns that no longer really apply to us. So,
and Darcy, somebody, Carmela Tucker did just provide a question in the chat about using the mass layoff spreadsheets for initial layoffs of more than 10 or not at all this year. Just clarifying what you had said earlier. I believe we're asking you all as employers to direct folks to our website because they can file or establish their claims online as opposed to the process, which has been that they couldn't have done that in the past. So is that any more information on that, Darcy?
So, yeah, exactly, Kyle. What we're not doing at this point, because your workers are able to do this easily themselves, is we are not going to be opening claims from mass layoff spreadsheets or from initial claim applications that we had used as part of the mass layoff process. Anyone who wants to file a claim is going to be responsible for opening that claim on their own. And we're encouraging them to try using the online filing first. If for some reason they are not able to file online, they still can file their own claims by calling our initial claims line at 877-214-3330. Staff will still be there to assist them to open the claims, but it's really becoming more of a user-driven process. The spreadsheets will really only need to be returned if you are paying out any type of deductible income at the separation. And if you get any forms that are sent to you for claimants that you have not laid off and provided to us on a mass layoff notice, those forms would likely have to be returned to us as well. I want to draw your attention on the mass layoff spreadsheet to the instructions tab. There is additional instructions there to help you complete the form if you're not sure of something. And if you have any questions about completing the mass layoff form, you are welcome to contact our employer assistance line. Someone can answer your questions about that and get you off on the right start.
Yeah, thanks, Darcy. I just wanted to add, in case it's still loading to come up for the instructions, that as you said earlier, Darcy, that this spreadsheet will be made available online later today. And then I would assume as well that we would be potentially sending the link to find that again to employers as well. So directly via email, but you can definitely find that on our website as well on the seasonal page. Awesome.
Okay.
Anything else, Darcy, on the mass layoff spreadsheet? I'm just going to jump back over to the website. If not, I just wanted to call out a few of the resources, and if you had anything to add as well.
I think we're done with the mass layoff spreadsheet.
Awesome. So just in terms of other resources that are on this page, on the unemployment-insurance/seasonal page, As Darcy said, there's a link to the one sheet that I would definitely encourage employers to provide.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah, just give it a second. It must be my connectivity today is not the best. I blame the weather for that kind of stuff. Just in terms of the resources that are available on this unemployment insurance seasonal page, there is the, as I said, the one sheet for employers that has information about how to establish and reopen a claim online, and then also a link to the UI claimant handbook. That would be specific for employers, and then there's more information for claimants at the top of the page. So, Darcy, I'll jump back over to the presentation.
Okay.
So I think that kind of covers the mass layoff spreadsheet versus individual forms bullet point. I think the next few topics would be benefit charges. And then I did see before we move on, Carla asking, so we really do not have to give our employees the B65 form anymore. Do you want to provide some just clarification on the B65 form and if employers need to provide that to their employees?
Carmel, you are correct. We are not going to be using the B65, which is a paper application for unemployment claims. Employers who have previously used the mass layoff filing process have been required to have their employees complete that form and return it to us anytime that we had to establish an initial unemployment claim. Since the employees are going to be opening their own claims, we won't need that form from anyone.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
So the next thing on the agenda was talking about benefit charges. So I don't know if that's something that you want to talk through and just provide a little bit more clarification about as well.
So I think that we've talked a bit about benefit charges. Benefit charges are assigned to base period employers. To be a base period employer, your wages, past wages paid to an employee, are being used to calculate a benefit amount. All base period employers are potentially chargeable, but based on the information that is provided to us, we will determine whether the employer should be charged or their account should be relieved. If you are not the last employer in time and you're receiving a form B10NS and you have an adjudication decision from a prior claim or a copy of an appeal decision, don't worry about filling out the form. Just send us attach the form to a copy of the decision and send it back in to us. It's not possible for our system to recognize when a claim has been, an employer has been relieved of charges based on a separation determination. In a prior benefit year, it does not automatically get applied to the new year. Lack of work separations are always chargeable separations. The claimant is out of work through no fault of their own. This year, things are a little bit different with our work search requirements. Due to the pandemic, we currently are not requiring claimants to seek work regardless of or to register with Vermont Job Link. Certainly, they are welcome to register if they would like to, but at this time, it's not a requirement. As we begin to see how things are shaping up with the employment picture and as the pandemic evolves, we may be reinstituting work search, and individuals would be notified of that when or if it happened. And then the next topic is return to work dates. And again, for people who have filed or worked with us last year, during the seasonal layoffs, we made a move to asking you to go online and update return to work dates for your workers instead of having it come into our office and become something that is delaying your employee from being paid if the return to work date is changed, but is something that we are trying to schedule into our workload. So when you are on our website, you can go into our employer online services And right in there, you will find a link to update or to our, I think it's called our Return to Work portal. Employees Return to Work Date application. This application lets you add, remove, or change a return to work date for an individual that you have laid off. You can do one individual at a time. You can do an upload if you have a file that you would like to upload to change multiple return to work dates. One thing about the return to work date portal is that if you have multiple people in your organization who will be changing return to work dates, possibly in different locations, the system only allows for one password, one PIN, to be used for the entire organization. We can't create PINs for multiple locations.
And Darcy, just before we move on to the refusal of work portion, a lot of this information, that seasonal page will be continually updated as we get more and more resources. So definitely feel free from an employer's perspective to, just jump to that page first. We'll be adding more resources like Darcy is referring to. Whether it's the return to work dates or, as we talked about, the refusal of or the mass layoff form. And then I know, Darcy, I think you're going to through the reporting of refusal of work. I know we do have a form on our website currently for that as well. So certainly we'll be adding links to that to the seasonal page. So I guess, Darcy, if you want to, last but not least, talk through the reporting of refusal of work.
Sure. Would you take us to where it is on the website, Kyle?
Sure, I can definitely do that. I think I will say I'll be likely adding it to that seasonal page.
Great.
But just in terms of where it is currently, I can definitely bring you there. But if you want to start talking through it,
sure.
Just so that folks can kind of see it. I will say I do have some updates to make to the multiple filing portion of that, but people can definitely still submit individual. Individual reports for refusal to return to work. So if it's not up currently, it should be here shortly. But if you go currently, it's on the unemployment insurance page. If you go down to where it says fraud, there's a link for refusal to return to work. And you can click on that, which gives you some more information about refusal to return to work and other types of fraud, and then brings you right to the form that you can fill out, and then that goes on to our staff. So if it's not up, Darcy, it should be here in a few seconds to come up. So again, apologies for the connectivity issues.
Okay, so as a requirement of unemployment, an individual is always required, whether they're required to seek work or not, to be willing and able to accept suitable work if offered to them. And if you have offered work to a former employee, ask them to come back after layoff, and they refuse, we're asking that you report to us. You can either use the refusal of work website tool, or you can fax or email a letter to us. Our fax number at the claim center is 802-828-9191. And we have a general email box, which is labor.uiclaimscenter@vermont.gov. If you're sending us information, it's important to have details. Again, we would be in touch with you for details of when the offer was made, what type of work was offered to them, the wage of the work that was offered to them. And it is important when you're making an offer of work to be specific with the individual about what work is being offered. The courts have determined that the offer of work has to be sufficient for the individual to make an informed decision. So so it's important to, even if it seems redundant, to remind them of the wage, coming back to work, what they're going to be doing, the work location, and then if they refuse, if you can find out why they are refusing the work, we're going to ask them that as well as we move forward into investigating that refusal. And I think that's about it.
Awesome. And Darcy, I did put the link to the I put the link in the chat to the refusal to return to work report form, and I'll throw the link in the chat as well for some of the other pages that we were referencing earlier, including that seasonal page. But I would like to open it up now, Darcy, if you're ready to take some questions, if there are any from folks. I guess we can start. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but if folks want to go ahead and post questions in the chat, that's great. Thank you to Darcy for posting the fax information. I know a lot of that's on a lot of that information is online, but always best to just get that information here. But before we do pivot to the chat, I do want to offer folks on the phone the opportunity to unmute themselves. Again, that would be *6 to unmute, and feel free to ask any questions that you might have regarding anything about this seasonal and mass claims process. I know we kind of threw a lot at you. Feel free again to unmute and just go ahead. I'm just going to kind of keep talking until I hear somebody jump in. But as I said, this presentation has been recorded, and we'll be posting it onto our YouTube channel, and actually putting that presentation right onto the seasonal page so that folks can find it as well, and likely sending the link out to you all as employers so that you can rewatch this presentation. So not hearing anybody with questions over the phone, and not seeing anybody posting any questions in the chat. So I guess, Darcy, do you have any kind of final thoughts about anything? If I see Carmela looks like in the chat, but certainly if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. I know that we'll be doing another one of these sessions. We have another one of these sessions scheduled for next Thursday at the same time at 2 o'clock. So please feel free to join us at that time. As I said, we'll be posting this more and more information as we get closer to the end of the as we get closer to the end of the month. I know we're only a few days away. So Darcy, did you have any kind of last thoughts or anything for folks?
Well, I think, for your workers who have routinely relied on you to open your claims when it's necessary to do that, this is going to be a little bit scary for them, particularly some of our older workers. And that on the seasonal page, there is actually a claimant portion that gives them important information, and that there's also a recorded presentation there that they can also watch to help answer any questions that they have.
Absolutely, thank you, and I'll throw that link here in the chat just real quick. But yeah, I think we'll just be communicating more and more, with folks, and I did just throw that link into the chat. Again, that was labor.vermont.gov/unemployment-insurance/seasonal. So please be sure to head to that page for any questions. We'll be adding more resources to that page as the days and weeks and months go on. So Darcy and everybody, Darcy, thank you for so much for the information. As I said, we'll be doing another one of these next week, so we'll look forward to potentially seeing folks then. But other than that, thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.